Okay, I'm doing some work on my Nikola. I'm changing the tire and doing a few things. And after I dismantled everything, I thought it would have been a good idea if I did a video for the next guy that wants to change tire. So we'll just act as if everything is in place. Just imagine the tire is back in here and the hanger sticking out here, and this rod is going through the pedal and the hanger. All right, you imagine that? Good. So you need a hex driver. The set screws are flush inside, so there's two of them, one on either side. You take them off, then you put something through, either the hex key itself or screwdriver or whatever, and you tap it gently or just push it by hand. There's two spacers, make sure you don't lose them. You push it through. Now obviously the hanger is going to be sticking here. These are the spacers. You push the rod through. Take this guy off. Your hanger is here. Then next, you take these guys off. I use a sharp knife. I stick it down the side without cutting it, and I lift the front, turn it, and pull it. There's a little tab here that goes into a little hole there. Then using your hex key, you unscrew that. Then sometimes it's difficult to pull it out with a hex key, and a magnet doesn't work because they're not steel. I think they're, I don't know, whatever. The magnet doesn't work on them. So I use a long nose, and I grab it and I pull it out. You do that 6 times around. Then on the original models, under the Gotway label, they used to put a screw in there also. So you got to double check to see if yours has that. If you just rub your finger over the original label, you should be able to feel it. Either way, you can peel the label off a little bit if it hasn't come off already, and see if there's a screw. If there's a screw, you take that off, and then you just peel it off. When you go to peel this off, it feels as if something is holding it in place. And the only thing that is holding it really in place is they put these sticky tapes on the battery. Mine isn't sticky anymore with all the dust and stuff. This actually gets stuck to the shell, so when you go to pry it off, it feels as if there's still a screw. As long as there is no screw in the middle of yours, there's no other screw apart from those 6. And maybe the one in the middle. On mine, it didn't have that. So as long as you've taken the screws off, the only thing that is holding it back is it being stuck to the battery. So you just got to pry it off. Once you pry it off, there's this thing that goes all the way around, and it goes around in this. It is actually that seal, that white seal goes around in here, not in the big gap. That's where your shell goes into, not there, but in this little slot here. Now, since the hanger is here and the wheel is coming out this way, you gotta peel that seal off a little bit and push it over the hanger. Then you gotta do the same with the LEDs. You take this guy that holds the LED somewhat in place. It's held in by pressure, really. Then you gotta take off the LED. Now the LED is stuck. It has sticky tape on the inside, and it is stuck to the edge of the shell. I found out the easiest way and least damage to the LED is I use my hex key and I put it. Now mine comes off easy because I've taken it off a few times and rerouted things. If you start somewhere and then you basically just keep turning this and moving it along, it gets rid of the sticky tape and it doesn't damage the LED. You got to take your time with it. If you use a knife, you could actually cut into it. So I found this is the safer bet. You just move it along and it gets rid of the sticky tape. Now once you've done that, you got to do it enough so you can put it over the hanger. Okay, once you do that, okay, I forgot, there's also this spacer in the wheel that you have to take off, so I'm gonna add this to the video. Basically, when you peel this off, and once you've peeled this guy off a little bit to push it over the hanger, obviously yours won't be like mine because the LEDs are actually continuous up to about there, so you just got to peel from both sides and then it kind of goes like that over the hanger. Mine is easier because I've rerouted it. Once you do that, then this spacer basically just pushes upwards. The only thing holding it in place is pressure and a couple of clips. So you just pull up and away, as they say. Then you got to take 6 bolts off. Now there's a cap here with silicone around it, so you got to cut off that silicone and pry the cap off, because you got to take off the motor wires and the hall sensor. The hall sensor goes there, and then the motor wires, if yours is side mounted like mine, yellow wire all the way to the left, then blue in the middle, and then green on the side. If I were you, I would do a video of your wires so you know exactly what goes where before you start dismantling things. So you take those off, you take the cap off, and then you turn this guy over and rinse and repeat exactly the same thing on the other side. You don't have to take the cap off from the other side because there's nothing coming out the other side. Once you do that, and you got to do the same with the LEDs and the seal on the other side also. Once you've done that, then you got to pull the wheel out. Now, the wheel won't just come out because the axle nut actually isn't flush with this well. It sticks inside the well a little bit, enough so that the wheel doesn't come out. There's quite a bit of give on the shell, as you can see. So what you have to do is play around with it. It took me, the first time it took me a while because I was scared. I didn't want to break anything, but it ended up having to be done with some force. I actually had my wheel upside down and pried the shell away, upwards basically, and you have to kind of do it simultaneously on both sides so that the nut goes below this well, and then once you do that, it just comes out. There's nothing else holding the wheel in. Once you take these 6 screws on both sides, the only thing that stops the wheel coming out easy is these axle nuts sticking inside this well a little bit. So once you get the wheel out, then you got to take the tire off. You're going to need, with these small tires, you're going to need like 16-inch metal rods tire irons to take the wheel off, the tire off. Be careful, take your time so you don't damage and bend your rim. And once you take it off, then obviously you put your new inner tube in, and when you go to put the tire back on, I would use a lot of lube. WD-40 I use. That lube will make your life much easier. I have also seen people put a new tire in the oven at about 100 degrees for a few minutes to warm it up so it is easier to put on. Take your time. I know of people that have pinched inner tubes about 3 times because they keep pinching the inner tube, and obviously they have to redo the whole thing. Pay attention when you're taking it off, which way this guy is pointing. I don't think it makes much difference whether it's pointing this way or that way, but I'm gonna do what Gotway did. So if the hanger is here, it's going to the left. So just pay attention to that. Once you've done that, you got to put it back in. Basically do the reverse of whatever you did to take it off. And then you go ahead and put your LED back in. Now with mine, I'm going to cut my LED to there because it's going to make life much easier next time. I wouldn't cut this guy, but LED, I don't care if I don't have 4 inches of LED at the bottom. As long as you cut it along, you can actually see it. You see where these solder points are? If you put your scissor in the middle and just cut straight across, you can cut it without any adverse effect. So your LEDs probably are going to start from here, go around and stop there. I rerouted mine. I brought it down to here. I did some resoldering and brought it down to here. Now I'm going to cut my LED to there, so when I go to change the tire, I don't have to mess around with this guy. Then obviously you put everything back in. You did. And the seal, the white seal that you peeled off, it may, if you even peel it to about here and then over the hanger, with moving it around, it may actually fall out of the groove. If it does, it doesn't matter. You can put it back in. Just take your time. You can actually put a little bit of Vaseline on your finger and run it across the seal. So when you go to put it back in, it goes in easier. Don't pull on the seal. You don't want to stretch it because then it will be longer than when you started. I mean, if it does happen, it doesn't matter. You can just snip off the extra. So you put the seal around, you bring the wires through, put them back in, the hall sensor, make sure you put everything the correct way, and then you put your cap back on, and then you can use silicone glue. Let me see, I forgot to bring that in. I use where is it? There. That's what I use. Black silicone adhesive sealant from Permatex. And the way I did that, I just put a bead on the inside here, right under that top lip, all the way around. Then I put it in, and your cable, your wires are actually going to come through this cutout. And once I put that back in, I put some over there so no water gets in. And you're going to have to hold this down with some pressure until the silicone sets. So you can put a weight on it if you can. If not, good old duct tape, as long as you stretch it tightly over it. One thing you can do when you have it apart is, okay, on the inside where the two shells meet, here where my finger is where the seam is. Now I put some of that same Permatex. I put a bead over the seam and then just rubbed it in so that no water can get in. I also did the same here. My motherboard actually used to be here. It was the original model, and my motherboard used to be there. This is a 84 volt 1600. I'm actually adding a battery here, so I had to change my inner shell, and you don't have to change the outer shell if you're going to do all this, but if you change the inner shell with the new type motherboard, you're going to have to do some resoldering because the wires won't be long enough to reach down here. So I did all that. I'm putting a 512 watt-hour battery here, basically making my 1600 into a 2100 Nikola. So that's the other thing you can do, is seal that from the inside, the seam. If you do ever need to pull the shells apart, you can just run a knife along that seam and they will come off. I think that was it, right? Yep. And obviously when you bring your cables back in, just make sure you put them in correctly. Take your time. If you are going to, I would suggest you unhook the power in case you drop something on the motherboard or whatever, you don't fry it. Now, what I would do, now this is going to spark, they all do for some reason. Let me put the camera down for a minute. You're going to hear the spark. There. Okay. All right. If you're going to work on it, I suggest you unhook your main XT60 or XT90. It depends what mood Gotway was in. Basically, you pry them off. Don't pull from the wires. Hold it from the connector and rock it back and forth until it comes off. Once it comes off, obviously I haven't put mine in, so I can do it with one hand. There. Once you take it off, you have to discharge the capacitors. So just press the power button once. Okay. And now there's no power to it. So I suggest you do that. And I believe that's it. Hope it helped. Tally ho.